This is Joshua Gundamu here with a special project. Mr. Joshua Gundamu is working on this guy here, which I'm sure he'll tell you about in some other video. My part was to, after he got done, he felt like it was a little too much the same with the knees and elbows all the same color. And so my part of the project was to separate knees and elbows so that he can dye them black. So actually I'll go back up here one more time so you can see what that would look like. Very nice. Imagining them black. I'm making the video though so that if anyone ever wants to do something like this, you can see what I did. So I wanted to free up the knee, but it's important to be able to cut along that line and have it turn out smooth, which is a little bit tricky. The first one turned out a little bit more of a V shape, which is fine. It goes back in nicely, which works. You know, it's pretty easy for it to find its home, fairly easy. This one's a little bit flatter, which is also fine. Still not very hard to find where it fits well. And so the trick in doing this is a few things. One, you want to cut right in that ditch there, which is the hardest thing. And then if you make any errors, because super glue doesn't dye, it turns out white, especially on black, you don't want white stuff. You either need to leave something flopping around hanging on here, or if it's meant to be part of this one, you can glue on here. Just make sure you don't get any super glue on the part that you're going to dye. In this case, this one is already dyed. This one's going to be dyed, so we don't want super glue on this one. So always trying to find the right angle to cut from is tricky. I think I ended up with something like this, and I just kind of, I don't have another mobile suit with me and Brandon's out of the room, but just, you know, trying to line it up with that, that ditch first helped a lot. And then, like I said, one of them I used more of this angle, one of them this one. It doesn't matter that much. But just finding my way through, make sure you have your, you know, appendages out of the way in case the knife slips. And then figuring out how to cut this line. Again, it was kind of better to line it up first and then make a small cut, and then kind of work my way around however I needed to get that all the way cut off. I did on both knees do a tiny bit of regluing. This one's got right here, there's this little piece that I glued back on because there was a little bitty green part here that showed, and I wanted to put it back on because otherwise it would have been fine, but I'm a very detailed person, so there you go. One of the reasons I made this video is that, in case you don't already know this, very helpful tip is, my piece of paper went away, I'll just do it in real time. Get a piece of paper, and we always use Loctite super glue, which has, I think, also run away, so maybe Mr. Gundamu was using it. Yes, he was. It's over there. So you get a little piece of paper and you use the corner, and I mean, little or big, but you know, little's easier. Use the corner and just put a tiny little bit of glue right on that corner, because we love Loctite super glue, but it's tricky to control how much comes out. Sometimes it's very little and sometimes it's a whole lot, and you just don't want a whole lot of super glue on a tiny little project like this. So I put a tiny little bit of super glue here, and then you know, either go this way, or ideally if I've got just a tiny little piece like this one, I glued a tiny little piece back on right here. There we go, right there, that little piece I glued back on. Ideally you put it on the smaller piece because, again, it's easier to not make a mess. But anyway, you just use the tiny bit that's on here, and if you get too much on here, you just pick a new corner, so no big deal, or wipe some off. But anyway, it makes it really easy to apply just a bit, because if all you've got that you need to do, if all you need to do is glue back on a tiny little sliver or something, then you don't need much glue. It just doesn't take much strength to hold that on. And so one of the ways that I work out detailed stuff is by by this. Oh, hey, I just missed that a little bit. Well, I'll cut it back off of this part and glue it back on that part, and I can do that. So, so there's a little bit of room for error that way on this project. And then these I did similarly, but because of the way these are set up, so here's the, let me get it back to where you can see. Okay, so here's what it looked like originally. And because some of it goes inside like that, what one would be tempted to do, skipping the last thing I said, what one would be tempted to do is just, oh, well, I'll just cut at this angle and I'll try to follow that curve, but I'm just going to tell you good luck. Good luck, because it's going to be really hard to, well, one thing I would say is if you were ever going to try something like that, which I wouldn't recommend on this particular cut, again, partly because of that curve, don't try to cut all the way through, just cut one side. However, because this has a curve there, and because this kind of goes what you could call inside a bit, I rather cut at this angle. So first I cut just a little bit here, not in very deep, just to kind of make sure that that top cut the way I wanted it to. And then you can't really fan it out very well, but you can try to just kind of bend it so that you can get the knife in where it goes. And then again, try to find that ditch and then cut. And then again, being very careful about where the point of the knife could slip to and where the rest of your hand is. So I'm not saying I held it in this position, but probably close. But I always try to do something. I didn't even have the hand on one of those. I always try to do something that makes it so that if the knife slips, my hand is out of the way, because Mr. Joshua Gundamu and I have both had our share of whoops. Let's try to make sure that our whoopses don't send us to the hospital. Super glue's great, but it doesn't fix everything. Anyway, I cut there, and then on, let's see. So this one was a little deeper. That was a little bit hard to do. This angle worked out better. So let me hold them still for a moment so you can see the angle difference. And I'll tilt it. I don't know if you can tell. Okay, see how there's a steeper angle cut backward on this one and a less steep angle on this one. So this was a little easier. So again, first I got, if you're needing to cut a straight line, it's very hard to do with the tip of your knife. So, so first I went this way, cut in just a little bit, and now that I had that line cut in, I went into that little ditch, you could call it, and fleshed it out a little bit more. So, so I got it, you know, back like this, and then back like this, and then I cut off nice and easy. This one was a little easier to do, like I said. With how deep these things go, you can't just really like cut all the way down and then cut straight in, because there's nowhere, it's just challenging. So I recommend that easier angle. It just makes it easier. So that's what I did, and we will glue these. Again, if any oopses, just try to do your oopses in a way that makes it so that you don't have to add super glue. If you ever had to add super glue, try to make sure it doesn't show at the outer edge, or try to make sure that you know, that you use the tiniest little bit of super glue, again with the paper trick. And I'm trying to think of how I would say that. If you can help not gluing it before you dye it, that's best. If you absolutely had to glue it before you dye it because of an oops, and because you'd lose the part if you know that you need to dye otherwise if you didn't glue it, just keep it really light as to the amount of glue. Keep it away from the edge. But honestly, if you cut off some of this and it wasn't very much, and you couldn't put it back in a way that's going to turn out well, you can always paint that part. Dye this part, paint that part. If it's a color you can repaint, that might be better than trying to figure out how to glue something on. But if you have to glue, just keep it light. And here's the project. Have fun with your dyeing and cutting and customizing.